Good morning. We were just checking Kat's mic because it's so raucous in here that people in the front row can't hear her. Good morning and welcome to the Vashon Island Unitarian Universalists. My name is Donna Klemke and I'll be the service leader today. Our congregation is committed to individual freedom of belief. We welcome diversity, and we seek to promote a sense of community that fosters religion which enriches the soul. We're mostly a lay-led community, strengthened and enriched by weaving together the volunteer contributions of members and friends. And our community is supported by our part-time minister, Reverend Victoria Poling. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional homeland of the Swabish Coast Salish Native people. The Puyallup people have lived on and stewarded these lands since the beginning of time, and they continue to do so today. We recognize that this land acknowledgement is one very small step towards true allyship, and we commit to uplifting the voices, experiences, and histories of the indigenous people of this land and beyond. Whoever you are, whomever you love, and however you arrived here, you are welcome.
Our chalice lighting this morning. Acceptance is about letting life flow and unfold without getting in the way. It is about being receptive rather than exerting resistance to what comes present.
As we begin our service, let's breathe together to relax and bring your attention into this moment of communal reflection and sharing. Breathing in, we are the love. Breathing out, we are the peace. Breathing in, we are the hope. Breathing out, we are the justice. May we know our strength. May we be filled with courage. And may our love flow from us into this world.
These opening words are from Charlotte Joko Beck. Life always gives us exactly the teacher we need at every moment. This includes every mosquito, every misfortune, every red light, every traffic jam, every missed ferry, every obnoxious supervisor or employee, every illness, every loss, every moment of joy or depression, every addiction, every piece of garbage, every breath. Every moment is the guru.
Does that include missed fairies?
Yeah, it is. Little ad lib there.
That was an ad lib. Today, the Mystery and Wonder team is offering an invitation to reflect on what the word acceptance means to you. The challenge of acceptance. Acceptance is not passive. It is not tolerance, forgiveness, or feeling helpless. It has to do with our interpretation of what life sends our way and our willingness to work with it. Acceptance allows us to move beyond the stuckness of fear and suffering. It is active and it takes courage and strength. It can be a place of empowerment and hope instead of feeling our hearts squeezed tight with hopelessness. We want to invite you into how we think of and experience the challenge of acceptance in our lives.
Good morning. When our team chose acceptance as our topic for today, my brain immediately went to the phrase radical acceptance. Wasn't that the title of an ebook I read a few years ago? Yeah, a quick check of my King County Library record confirmed that it was, and a Google search revealed other references to the term radical acceptance. I discovered with amazement that radical acceptance is a major concept in both Zen and AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and shows up in the personal stories you'll hear today. Great. I've been a practicing Zen Buddhist for more than 10 years and have firsthand knowledge of AA's practices from my best friend, who's been in the program and has been sober for more than 16 years. Not an expert, but I know quite a bit about the idea. The word radical comes from the Latin root first, original, and basic, and the term radical acceptance refers to the idea that one can experience true clarity, unlimited joy, and complete satisfaction only when one is first able to accept everything just as it is. Without radical acceptance, we are susceptible to resentments and regrets from the past, and doubt, fear, anger, and a host of other unpleasant emotions in the present and about the future. What's so interesting to me is that both Zen and AA put radical acceptance only before one can realize enlightenment in Zen or triumph over addiction in AA. These preconditions are what makes acceptance radical. The stories you'll hear today illustrate radical acceptance because in every instance, acceptance had to come before complete resolution and true peace was possible. Since the word acceptance itself carries a large range of meanings, I'd like to identify 3 different levels of focus. First, and most broadly, what we might call the public level of acceptance, where we have no direct personal influence or control. At this level especially, it's important to make the distinction between accept and approve. On this level, can I accept that Donald Trump might become president again, or that global warming may bring on terrible natural disasters in the next few years? Of course not. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, but do I approve? Of course not. That's how it's. Beth White, bring on your postcards. To me, Bill Moyer's description of his activism last week, for those of you who were here last week, was a perfect example of practicing radical acceptance. Instead of reacting to hostile and irrational attitudes and behavior, he looks deeper to the frustrations and fears behind the irrational hostility that drives the militant right. That is elegant radical acceptance. The second level where acceptance can be a challenge I would call relational, where the negative emotions triggered by the people in our lives, such as fear, anger, resentment, disapproval, and disappointment, are constantly short-circuiting our joy, contentment, and sense of security. It's hard to accept that neighbor that gossips, that boss that unfairly criticizes, that friend who constantly gripes about their mate but can't seem to muster the courage to leave the relationship. But of course, reacting doesn't change anything. Their behavior or your frustration and the uncomfortable suspicion that you just might lack the same kind of courage that you're condemning in them. But the third level of acceptance, what I call the self level, is to me far and away the hardest of all, and it's this level that both Zen and AA address. Zen practice has a lot to say about the importance of self-acceptance, and many of Thich Nhat Hanh's books address ways of building self-esteem by starting with radical acceptance. My dad, who in his past had experienced a failed marriage and a number of jobs that were unsuitable for him, had found his way by the time I knew him. More than once he said, "When I stopped beating my head against the wall, things began to come together for me." By the time I came along, my parents' union was solid, and Dad was in a career that supported his beliefs, interests, abilities, and training. And it was because of radical acceptance of where he was. As for my own self-education in radical acceptance, well, I'm repeating the second grade. Participating in this discussion is helping me clarify my own journey, and I thank you for giving me the opportunity. Here's some things that are helping me with this growing into radical acceptance. Number one, meditation. It calms me by keeping my mind in the present, which means fewer regrets from the past and fewer fears about the future. Number two, practicing gratitude. More than any other activity, expressing my gratitude for everything that has enriched my long life has been the most rewarding aspect of practicing radical acceptance. And by the way, finding this fellowship is part of what I'm grateful about, and being in this Mystery and Wonder team. These are among the gratitudes that I recite when I talk about gratitude. Number three, being there for others. Focusing my energy on the well-being of others reduces my tendency to dwell on my own problems. So things like volunteering and helping out your neighbor. It's amazing to me how quickly that takes your mind off from your own stuff. And finally, number five, events from the past that you regret can be helpful reminders of what to avoid in the present. But if regrets are undermining your self-esteem in the present, remember, that was then. This is now. You literally, I mean literally, are not the same person. You know? Learn to forgive and radically accept that person you used to be. Thank you.
Researching acceptance on the web, I found this explanation. Quote, acceptance means that you practice allowing your feelings to be what they are without judging or trying to ignore, push away, or change them. So this definition, to be aware of how I'm feeling and to accept that these feelings exist inside my body and mind without trying to suppress or push them away. This includes, even as Jeff mentioned, those difficult or challenging ones like embarrassment, guilt, loneliness, jealousy, hurt, disappointment, or even grief. And I am not alone. According to Psychology Today, 90% of people surveyed struggle with accepting displeasing emotions at some point. Quote, even if it seems like rejecting one's emotions should allow one to minimize or avoid them, but it often backfires and has the opposite effect. I really experienced that during my journey into my husband Alan's decline during Alzheimer's disease. My husband was diagnosed with early onset dementia at age 59 in 2011. I married him partly for his intellect. He was a PhD microbiologist with a food patent, and he loved humor. But when he got this diagnosis, he didn't accept it. He denied it, accused the doctor of lying to him, and he was angry. I accepted it because I had already experienced this confusion that he had. And I felt grateful for the clarity of the diagnosis to really know what was going on. Yet I also felt scared. As I shared above, the self level that Jeff explained, I was aware of these feelings, but also noticed my desire to suppress them. I wanted to move ahead, unburdened. But as I kept denying them, they grew inside. I'd experienced already the loss of my father to dementia that turned into Alzheimer's disease. And dementia had completely changed who my father was, turning him into a 2-year-old, needy and totally present. So Dad didn't even know me anymore because I existed in the past, which felt really painful to me. I wished he'd die. As my fear over Alan's disease grew, so did my anxiety and my worry. Was I going to lose this funny, smart Alan that I loved and be left with someone who I didn't know or trust, and he wouldn't know me? Yet my reaction to anxiety and worry about the future was to act versus pause. I wanted to get things done. I pushed it all away, buried them under, and kept going. I had experienced how hard it was for my mother to sell our family home because it had become infested with rats while she took care of my father. So I began looking again to downsize, which we'd already explored with several realtors. I knew I could not care for the home, our finances, and property while taking care of Alan. We bought a smaller home, which felt like the right move to me, but was very disorienting to Alan. He missed our old home and its garden that he'd spent many hours and days cultivating. His anger and criticism grew as more and more losses piled up in his abilities. He couldn't recognize how to type on the computer keyboard any longer or create slideshows. So he had to give up, leading birding by ear at the land trust. And I began anticipatory grieving. I felt deeply sad and tearful many times that year, but often shoved it under and just kept going. But my buried emotions kept arising, overwhelming me, shifting. I felt worried. I felt anxious, sad, or a mixture of all of this. At times I was aware of these feelings, but I didn't have those wisdom or tools to know how to accept them. Alan died in August 2016. My emotions slid into grief. My life felt purposeless, without direction or desire. At times I felt consumed by loss and sadness. My rejection of my emotions created mental distress, and I became depressed. Why was I alive? Alan's brother Larry connected with my feelings of grief, but he didn't slide into depression. He had wanted Alan to die so that Alan wouldn't suffer anymore. Larry grabbed me by the shoulders and made me look into his eyes. "You're still alive. Act like it." He hugged me tightly and stayed in contact. With his love and support and my girlfriends, I slowly accepted my feelings of loss, sadness, worry, anxiety, grief, and fear underneath all of it. I had experienced how denying all of these created even more suffering, leading me into depression. I began to feel more gratitude for the 30 years that we had shared, for the daughter we'd parented, for the love we kept alive. I became more accepting. So this is a personal journey into non-acceptance of my emotions and the cost of that choice. It was an enormous learning for me to see how clearly how essential it is to become aware of my emotions rather than getting busy, ignoring them again, or even judging them. I have found that just by noticing and really feeling these feelings, which have served and protected me sometime in my life, they don't need to overwhelm me again right now. As Sylvia will share, acceptance transforms you. I've experienced this on the journey through the end of our marriage. I'm transformed by awareness. In this moment, I can stay with these emotions, even the challenging ones, and I found that accepting them lessens their grip. When I can feel my emotions and be kind and patient with them, they gradually melt away. When that happens, I feel a deep sense of peace and self-acceptance. May it be so for you too.
I don't accept that. That's better. So it feels like a real synchronicity when our team chooses a topic that is exactly what I need to work on right now in my life, right? And you hear the same things in all the things that people are saying today, so it's really, again, synchronicity. And especially when I find some words that I really need to hear. So Pema Chodron said to me via the internet, "Let difficulty transform you, and it will. In my experience, we just need help learning how not to run away." This challenge of acceptance is kind of what I'm experiencing right now in my life. There's allowing rather than resisting, not running away from difficulty, but choosing to breathe into and through the experience, trusting that it has value. Our families experience difficulties, whether it's the one you were born into, the one you've chosen, functional, dysfunctional, close, estranged. And for me, feeling and accepting the painful emotions that come from these difficulties is truly a challenge of the heart. Like a child with big emotions, a 2-year-old, I find myself overwhelmed by feelings that I just don't know what to do with. It's not something I learned growing up in my family. We did only happy. My parents and grandparents didn't want to go back to the pain of the World War II, having to leave Latvia and losing everything but their lives, and moving to Germany and being in a refugee camp for 4 years, and then emigrating to the U.S. So yeah, we did not do sad or difficult. There's a Buddhist saying that says, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And that's the wisdom I found when I looked further into Pema Chodron's 3 ways to transform your emotions. She's an American-born Buddhist that often I turn to because I can really understand her explanations of the concepts. So I read about this 3-step practice that Pema teaches that transforms painful, destructive emotions from a cause of suffering to a path of awakening. Whoa, that's the help I needed. So I'm learning not to run away from difficulty. She says, according to Buddhist teachings, it's not emotions themselves that are bad or good. They themselves don't make us suffer, because they're not intrinsically bad or good. They're just sensations. They're impermanent. It's our actions in response to these negative emotions that cause us to suffer. We stuff these painful emotions, we numb out, or get wrapped up in a story of blame and shame, or just plain try to escape. As Pema's teacher, Tsinko Rinpoche, said, you have to be willing to feel some discomfort. Ouch. So Pema says, when I get grabbed by an emotion, remember 3 words: embodied, present, and kind. Drop into your body, bring your attention to where you are right now, and be kind. So drop into your body, she says. First, start with physical sensations because they're relatively straightforward and provide a good access point. What am I feeling in my body when I feel sadness or guilt? Is there a heaviness in my chest? Is there tension in my shoulders? Are there tears running down my cheeks? It's pretty obvious when you stop and pay attention. And next she says, bring attention to where you are right now. And she says the trick is to stay present with the energy, the emotion, without acting out or repressing. Once I become aware of the confusion and hurt that result from receiving an angry text, the next step is to feel what I'm feeling. And here Pema says to do that with an attitude of curiosity and openness rather than judgment, in an atmosphere of acceptance. I'm going to read that again because that's the key. It says when you feel these feelings, do that with an attitude of curiosity and openness rather than judgment, and an atmosphere of acceptance. This is the part where I have to be willing to feel some discomfort. I need to practice acceptance, allowing rather than resisting. Lastly, she talks about being kind to yourself. She says, I've discovered that when I've allowed myself to feel what I feel, I become more patient with myself and more forgiving. This self-compassion and self-acceptance can be a challenge for someone like me who's used to taking care of others, powering through my own difficulties and not asking for help. Instead of being self-critical, I'm learning to take care of my heart by accepting my imperfect self. It's what I do for a friend. So being awake to our pain is where the wisdom lies. This practice of allowing is how the lessons are learned. When I ask myself the question, what am I supposed to learn from these painful emotions? And then accept the answer, then these emotions become a path for change. It is a challenge of acceptance that transforms us. And I'm going to read Charlotte Joko Beck's words again. And those are, life always gives us exactly the teacher we need every moment. That includes the mosquito, every misfortune, every red light, every traffic jam, every obnoxious supervisor or employee, every illness, every loss, every moment of joy or depression, every addiction, every piece of garbage, every breath. Every moment is the guru.
I would like to say at this moment, it was ignorance that killed the cat. Curiosity was framed.
Depending on my mood, I can reflect on my life as a series of wonderful adventures and challenges, or a collection of missed opportunities and a pile of mistakes. Clearly, my reflective attitude makes a world of difference. Goodness knows I have made mistakes, some more significant than others. I regret my affair that led to my first divorce. As a result, I have personally cultivated pounds of shame, self-criticism, and embarrassment over the years for this. I would like to say that I've fully accepted myself for the affair, but in my weakest moments, I can drift into regret. Not good. Most of the time, I'm able to accept what I have done and focus on strengthening my commitment to Rick. This is my challenge of acceptance. There are many aspects of our daily lives that drop us into challenging opportunities for acceptance. Take, for instance, a critical remark that I made to a friend. Ouch. Their response quickly informed me of how hurtful I was. I could have thrown myself into self-judgment or offered a caring and sincere apology while being compassionate toward myself for the mistake that I had made. I can perpetuate my own suffering or find a way toward being more loving, kind, and accepting of myself, with grace and an openness toward learning from the experience. I don't know about you, but there are times I accidentally blurt something out and immediately regret it. My regret is a kind reminder to repair and apologize. In doing this, I am accepting my mistake, creating my own teaching opportunity with self-compassion. This work is about love, loving ourselves and seeing our mistakes with tender eyes. When I came home from surgery in December, my energy was sapped, and I had minimal resources for the holidays, conversations with friends, or much of anything. Instead of feeling frustrated and irritated, I felt challenged to accept my situation and found incredible pleasure in reading, relaxing much more than I typically do, and simply enjoying being horizontal. My recovery process was unbelievably positive. I accepted my new slow pace, letting life flow and unfold without getting in the way with discouragement or complaining. Acceptance is about being receptive to what is, instead of resisting with a negative attitude. It is a conscious choice to drop our resistance to whatever has surfaced and make the most of it. This helped me tremendously in finding peace and happiness in my recovery. I used to be a runner, loving the freedom to put on a pair of shoes and take off alone. Fresh air, sweat, joy, and beauty, all wrapped up in a 45-minute run. My left knee, ultimately screamed at me, ending decades of runs, having earlier ended decades of tennis. It was either accept with grace or walk around with an angry grudge about my aging body. I imagine each of you has your own story about how your changing body has limited you or altered the way you inhabit and use it for exercise or simple mobility. I offer acceptance as a balm, a soothing approach to the losses we all feel when we age. Difficult experiences and feelings can have value for us if we remain humble enough to receive, learn, and practice patience with ourselves and others. Whenever we can accept the challenge of what emerges, we become open to the possibility of transformation with our changing attitudes. What a gift. Personally, now I reach for a lighter, more easygoing attitude toward myself and the mistakes I've made over the years. If I can be accepting of my own problems and shortcomings, I will be more allowing of others. From that perspective, I will say that I have worked with some people over the years whose communication style or personality has driven me crazy, privately feeling judgmental and critical. Not good. Thank goodness I have found a way of coping. I see these people as my teachers. For instance, when my daughter was acting out in her adolescence, I considered her my teacher of patience. Otherwise, I would have fallen deeply into trying to control her, which I'm sure I did occasionally. As my teacher of patience, Eliza could help me be a better, more loving and accepting mother, thus creating more ways for us to have a close and intimate relationship. Who are your teachers of patience? Acceptance is a conscious choice to drop all forms of resistance to whatever has come present in the moment in order to make the most of it. It is about letting life flow and unfold without getting in the way. It is about being receptive rather than being resistant to what comes along. It is about love. Love for ourselves and love for others. As challenging as this is, I choose lemonade over lemons.
You've now heard 4 voices about the challenges of acceptance. And so I invite you to think about a time when you were or are challenged either by another person or an outside circumstance that was incredibly frustrating. What loving attitude and message would you want to embrace in accepting this challenge? What would your voice of compassionate acceptance say to you? Let's just take a minute or two to reflect.
This was written by a good friend of mine that I happened to lose during the pandemic. It was cancer, it wasn't COVID. If you know it, feel free to join in, as I know you already have. Dutchman's not the kind of man to keep his thumb jammed in a dam that holds his dreams in. But that's a secret only Margaret knows. When Amsterdam is golden in the morning, Margaret brings him breakfast she believes in. He thinks the tulips bloom beneath the snow. He's mad as he can be, but Margaret only sees that sometimes. Sometimes she sees her unborn children in his eyes. Let us go to the banks of the ocean, where the walls rise above the Zuyder Zee. Long ago, I used to be a young man, and dear Margaret remembers that for me. The Dutchman still wears wooden shoes. His hat and cloak are patched with love that Margaret sewed in. Sometimes he thinks he's still in Rotterdam. He watches tugboats down canals, calls out to them when he thinks he knows the captain. Till Margaret comes to take him home again, through unforgiving streets that trip him though she takes his arm. Sometimes he thinks that he is alone and he calls her name. Let us go to the banks of the ocean, where the walls rise above the Zuyder Zee. Long ago, I used to be a young man, and dear Margaret remembers that for me. The windmills swirl the winter in. She wraps his muffler tighter. They sit in the kitchen. Some tea with whiskey keeps away the dew. He sees her for a moment, calls her name. She makes the bed up, humming some old love song. The tune she heard when it was very new. He hums a line or two. They hum together in the dark. The Dutchman falls asleep and Margaret blows the candle out. Let us go to the banks of the ocean, where the walls rise above the Zuyder Zee. Long ago, I used to be a young man, Let us go to the banks of the ocean, where the walls rise above the Zuyder Sea. Long ago, I used to be a young man, and dear Margaret remembers that for me.
You've now heard a fifth voice about the challenge of acceptance. Thank you, Kat. I don't know if I can do this. Can you come up?
I'll try. So we pause the recording now for
There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding all. I rest in this love. There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all that we love. There is a love holding all. We rest in this love.
As members and friends of the Vashon Island Unitarian Universalists, we commit to supporting our congregation. Our pledges and offerings help us pay Reverend Victoria, speakers and staff, and support our social justice programs and maintain our building. So please support Vashon Island UUs with both your pledges and your offerings so that we can continue to be a vital community. As the greeters pass the baskets, let's join in singing We Give Thanks.
Same key, I guess. I never get this right. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for those gathered here and those far away, for the time we share with love and care. Give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Gathered here and those far away, for the time we share with love and care. Give thanks for this precious day.
Our closing words are the Serenity Prayer. May I have the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Thank you, Kat, for your wonderful music. And Spencer for helping us out with all the technical stuff. The Mystery and Wonder team that I'm so privileged to be part of. And the Third Sunday Setup team for everything you do to make this place beautiful and welcoming. So if you have an announcement to share related to a UU activity, this is the time to do it. So if you'll come up and do that. I'd like to start just to clarify a little bit about Brian Doyle. He's actually been quoted by our team several times. He is an amazing, I think he died in his 60s of cancer. He was a Roman Catholic, but kind of left that theology and embraced this more internal light. I can't explain it any other way, but if you have time to look, go to the library and get some books out. He's a prolific writer. He was the editor of a Catholic newsletter in Portland for years, Portland University, I think. And he is a gem. And he should have been a Unitarian, you know?
I don't think you're listening to me. This is Cynthia. I am trying to be Alex. You know, what I said was 20 years younger and that much taller. And nobody signed up over there. I don't care about that. I want to know that you're going to come to the potluck next Sunday. Yeah, looking at people, I'm going to remember you in my thoughts every day. And you know I have mood changes, so you watch out. I just wanted your sign language, the song. Thank you so much. It was lovely.
Just a quick reminder that the book club is meeting right after the service in the little room back there. We'll wait for about 5 minutes or so to get some snacks and stuff. And then it's on Repentance and Repair, Making Amends in an Unapologetic World by Danya Rutenberg. And it's very interesting. And I just finished the whole book finally yesterday. So even if you haven't finished it, feel free to come and we can talk about it. It's pretty interesting. So feel free, even if you haven't read the book.
Postcards are back. Now